Do you know when it's time to harvest your eggplant? See how this has kind of a glossy finish to it? This one over here is starting to lose that a little bit, which means this is starting to go to seed and this is maturing. Notice when one gets too ripe, you'll see it loses this glossiness. This one here is another variety that I'm growing this year. See how it fits kind of in the palm of my hand. To me, that is a good size. It'll taste better, it won't be as bitter. And that is a beautiful eggplant. This one was a striped rose eggplant. Do you know when it's time?
How many plants should you grow? Let's talk eggplants. Just 3 eggplants is more than enough for me. Ooh, it's an eggplant party. You probably need to grow less than what you think you do. On this large fruited eggplant, got 3 fruit on the way, and I counted 30 more fruit buds that'll form over the coming months. And then I've got these little baby plants that mass produce small fruit. And 2 of these I find is plenty. You don't need a big space to grow food, and you don't need a lot of plants either. I used to think you needed rows and rows of plants to feed yourself. It's actually not true. If you look after your plants, they look after you, and you don't need as many as you might think.
Everything you need to know to grow eggplants in less than 60 seconds. Plant them in late spring after the last threat of frost. Eggplants need a spot in the garden where they will get full sun. The ideal temperatures for growing eggplants are between 20 to 30 degrees Celsius and 70 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. You can plant eggplants directly in the ground or transplant seedlings. Eggplants grow best in well-drained sandy loam or loam soil that is fairly high in organic matter. They can grow up to 90 centimetres or 35 inches tall, and so should be planted 45 centimetres or 18 inches apart. Water them deeply and infrequently, applying 1 to 2 inches per week. You should be able to pick and enjoy your eggplants anywhere from 65 days after you plant them. Save this for when you're in the garden, or come join others in the Thriving with Nature community where you can access the entire plant, insect and diseases database.
Alright, let's prune this eggplant again, because as you can tell, it has gotten huge. Pruning your eggplant will help with that fruit production. So what we start with is taking off all of the suckers. They're the tiny little things that grow up in between the stems and the leaves. And so this one was rather big, so I ended up using the shears and I cut it off, and I'm actually going to propagate this one because it was so big. After that, I went in and took off the rest of all of the little suckers, but then I also ended up trimming off a bunch of leaves. Any leaves that were growing up into the middle of the plant or were growing up into other leaves and interfering, we just want to go ahead and get rid of those and open up a lot of airflow in the middle of the plant. So that's what I'm doing here, is I'm just cutting off all of those leaves that are either touching the ground or growing up into the middle of the plant or just don't look healthy anymore, and then taking off all those suckers. This way it keeps the plant healthy and is less prone to diseases this way as well. Also, instead of giving energy to all those suckers, it'll put more energy into more fruit. Now obviously you don't want to take off too many leaves or all of the leaves, because those are the plant's solar panels, is like what I like to call them. Just anything that's unhealthy, suckers, touching the ground, or growing up into the middle of the plant or interfering with other leaves. But look at how much better this plant looks. There's so much more airflow up the middle, and it has no more suckers, so it can optimize all of its fruit growth. I also hand pollinated the flowers so it can really start to take off again. I noticed the plant was leaning a little to the side because this eggplant is a little bit heavy on that one side, so I added this stake and it really helped out and is no longer leaning on that cinder block. This is probably my favorite plant in the garden, so I take a little extra care of it. Alright,
Today Mom's showing us how to grow eggplants from seeds. Let's get started. First, Mom dries out an eggplant and will retrieve the seeds. And here are the seeds. If you don't have an eggplant, you can buy them from the store.
Put in the top soil like this. And you cover like this a little bit. And you water like this. The water go down up here. And a week later, they like this. 3 months later, they like this. I put in the pot like this, they roll like this.
Here's what they look like when they flower, and then they grow to this.
And you then.
Today, Mom's showing us how to grow eggplants from seeds. Let's get started. First, Mom dries